name is Micheál McGrath. I'm the head of marketing here at Visible Trade, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this session on burnout in proposal management. Welcome to Optimize. I hope this isn't your first session. If it is, you're more than welcome. There's lots to catch up on. If you have been here since this morning, I hope you've enjoyed all the different sessions and topics we've talked about, and there's so much more to come from this event. Just a few little reminders before we go in. All recordings, all slides, all the content will be available after the event, so we look forward to sharing that with you. And if you do have any questions for the team, for Visible Trade, or any of our amazing speakers today, feel free to get in touch and we'll be happy to answer them. We will be taking a live Q&A at this session, so more than welcome to put your questions into the Q&A box and we would like to try and answer them. This morning has been amazing. We've covered so many topics. We've talked about collaboration between proposals, capture, BD. We've talked about automation. We talked about the future of proposal management. We've talked about how to optimize, how to collaborate better with one another. And it leads to us to think, why are we trying to achieve this? So why are we trying to optimize? Why are we trying to improve? One is to win more business, of course it is. But two is to invoke a better strategy for our teams to be successful. As a team lead myself, we embrace technology, we embrace better processes, we embrace better communication strategies to work better, to make our employees more strategic thinkers, to make them happier in their jobs and in their lives, to make them more productive for our companies so we can move forward. Often in proposal management, unfortunately, it can't be possible in some organizations. Some organizations are experiencing heavy burnout and very severe issues in teams. And that moves us to this topic. And the research that Mairi Morrison has done with strategic proposals, her work has quantified the impact burnout is having on proposal teams. And we're delighted to have Mairi join us today. We're absolutely over the moon. How are you, Mairi?
I'm good, thanks.
No, you're very welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and work through your presentation? And we'd be delighted to take any questions at the end.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Mairi Morrison. I'm a Senior Proposal Manager at Strategic Proposals. I'm also CEO of APMP UK, and I sit as Vice Chair on the APMP Mental Health Affinity Group. And today I'm going to talk to you about burnout in proposal management and how we can look after our well-being. There's a few things I'm going to talk about. So the first one is why this research was done. So just a bit of a background. I've been working in the industry for 21 years now. And after a couple of years, I had a breakdown due to the workload that I was given. I was the only person in the bid team, so I was having to do everything, and it just got too much. So I spent a few years working on myself while I was still doing bids, working out what was getting me stressed, how could I alleviate that stress, what coping mechanisms I could put in place. And I've carried that forward throughout my whole 21 years, making sure that I'm doing self-care on myself. And it came to a few years ago, and I was just sitting thinking one day, I wonder how many other people this has happened to. Tried to look on the internet for some figures, just came up with some general workplace kind of reports and facts and figures. There was nothing specific to our profession. So I just did the research myself, sent out a survey and worked on a white paper with the survey results. And that was before COVID hit. So did a second piece of research towards when we started coming out with the pandemic, which this presentation is based on. So we're going to look at some of the survey results as we go through. And then we're also going to look at what we can do ourselves to protect our well-being on a personal level and within the teams that we work in. So, as I said, COVID hit after my first set of survey results. And the first set of survey results, there was a shocking figure that came back, and it was 88% of bid and proposal professionals said that their well-being had been affected by their role. And in the general workplace, the figure sits around 55%, so it's a huge leap in our profession, the tight deadlines and everything. So that kind of made me really interested in finding out more. After COVID hit, again, lots of things changed in our lives. So we had new digital ways of working that we had to get used to, working from home as well. There was a sense of isolation, work and family merged together. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. And some people had lack of work, and some people had too much work. So there are all of these different things that we had to contend with once COVID hit us. And it became very unsettling for everyone. And it was down to change. It's a massive change in the world. As you can see here, Charles Kettering said, the world hates change, yet it is the only thing that has brought progress. So although change can be really unsettling, it's actually a positive thing as well. And as we go through this, we'll look at the positives as well, and things that it's helped us change. Another quote as well, once it comes up. Change is inevitable, change is constant. If you think about your life on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, everything's different every single day. So we're coping with change every day. But something like COVID was huge change, and it impacted us quite significantly. And then change is inevitable, except from a vending machine. I just thought I'd chuck a humorous quote in there to lighten the mood a bit. So change can be uncomfortable, as I've said, but is your mindset towards change negative or positive? For myself, I've always had a positive mindset towards change. I've gone through quite a lot of big changes in my life, and I think maybe my mindset's positive towards change because I can see how I've grown through those changes. So when change happens, although it's unsettling, we need to think of the positives. Now, within proposal management, there's 3 streams that contribute to stress that create a perfect storm, and we're going to look at these 3. So one is procurement. They're responsible for deadlines. They're the ones that set the bids to come out just before Christmas, or deadlines between Christmas and New Year type thing. So that's one of the streams. The second stream is management. So those are the people responsible for supporting their bid teams. They have a duty of care to those teams, and we'll look at whether that's being supported or not. And then you're responsible for your mental well-being, and this is something else that we're going to look at throughout the presentation. So in my second survey, 51% of bid and proposal people said that they suffered mental well-being issues due to their role since the pandemic began. So that's quite a normalish number. And I don't know if it's everybody was coping with other changes. We asked specifically if it was to do with their role, and it might not have been due to COVID. It's still a high number. People were allowed in the survey to come back with comments, and this is what happened. So people were feeling a lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, which I'm a big sufferer of imposter syndrome, anxiety, burnout, stress, breakdowns. People were finding it exhausting. They were overwhelmed, panic attacks, self-doubt. So these are all the kind of things, and it feels quite negative when you see these on the screen. And then there's various reasons that people were feeling this way. Relentless workloads, which I'm sure we've all had, the short, challenging deadlines, people were feeling overworked, isolation due to the pandemic, and lack of face-to-face contact. For example, myself, I live on my own. I'm 600 miles away from my family. I felt very isolated. And the fact that you could only go out for one walk a day and not kind of really, you had to stay 2 meters apart from everybody else. It was quite hard to deal with. People were suffering from lack of work during the pandemic. And then, if you're stuck at home and you haven't got work to do, what else can you do? There's only so much cleaning and tidying you can do, and Netflix movies that you can watch. And then you're not escaping work pressures while you're stuck at home. You might be stuck in there with a family, you've got children, various other things. So there's lots of various reasons for this. And one of the comments that I wanted to look at was this, which came back. Somebody came back and said that they had worked 10 days straight with hardly any sleep to submit a bid on time that they knew wasn't good enough. And I'm sure we've all had this, maybe not 10 days straight, but I hope nobody's done 10 days straight. But, we all kind of can relate to this comment. We do end up hardly sleeping when we're working on a bid. You feel like you're working 10 days straight. Sometimes you think, why are we even doing this bid? It's not good enough. We're not going to win it. And I've just put my heart and soul into it. But I want to turn this on its head because there's another way of looking at it. So why is things like this happening still? So, for example, the 10 days straight working. For example, did management not notice that you were working these amount of hours? Did you bring it up with your manager? Sometimes your manager is managing other people as well. They've got their own job. They might not have realized or seen the signs that you're doing this. So it's up to us to bring it to our manager and say, actually, this isn't on, it's far too much. And then hardly any sleep. It's our responsibility to look after our health and say no when it's been badly affected. So this comes down to boundaries. You need to make time to sleep. I'm very keen on the health side of well-being as well. I go to the gym, I eat healthy food. And one of the main other factors that goes into a healthy lifestyle is getting enough sleep. So it is our responsibility to look after ourselves and factor in that time for sleep. It can be hard to put boundaries in place to try and get that sleep, or to try and, get somebody else to help on your bid team. But it is something that you need to put in place. And knowing that the bid wasn't good enough, there's questions here as well. Should it have been a no bid? Are you able to speak up in your team while the no bid decision is going on and say, actually, I don't think we're going to win this due to X, Y, Z. Do we need to not do this bid and focus on one we'll win? For example, did SMEs not provide correct content on time? That might be another issue that you can look at. Have you got good relationships with those subject matter experts that are providing content? That's one of my main things when I work with a new client, is when I talk to their SMEs, I make sure that they realise that I'm there to support them. I'm not there to take them away from their full-time job that they're doing. It's actually about supporting them. They might not be able to write the content, but it's in their head. So I would interview them, write down the content, do a first draft and pass it back to them. And if you build up the trust with those types of people, it makes it easier for them, and it makes it easier for you as well. And you build up the relationship of trust. So next time you work with them, it's easier. So there's various questions that can be asked around that statement of working 10 days straight. So instead of actually complaining, probably just inside your head, turn it on its head and say, what could I have done different? Is there anything that I've got control of that I can implement that makes that situation easier? And then another survey result was that 64% of bid and proposal professionals said their workplace provided them with ways to improve their mental well-being during the pandemic. I think everybody realised that during the pandemic, we had to look after ourselves, which, although the pandemic wasn't a good thing, I think the fact that not only bid and proposal managers went through the pandemic, management went through it as well. So there's this sense of everybody needs to look after their well-being, and I think that maybe helped on a human level. So there was various ways that the workplace provided help during pandemic. Access to wellbeing professionals, whether it was therapy or counselling. I would recommend, therapy and counselling is fantastic. I think there's still a stigma around actually reaching out for help in these professional areas. I go to therapy myself once a week, find it fantastic, and it's really helped me. So if you ever feel that you want to reach out to and get professional help around things that you're having problems with, I would thoroughly recommend it. And I think it takes a strong person to go and do something like that. People were given training on mental wellbeing issues. There was webinars. There was a wealth of online courses that you could take. Workplaces put in different Teams calls. They had virtual happy hours every week. They had flexible work, and they had check-in calls every month to make sure that people were doing okay. And, some of these calls were quite social. They would have little, quizzes and stuff, anything to kind of keep up the mood of people. And people were sent regular care packages by their teams as well, which was a really nice thing to do. And then there was various other things that workplaces put in place, and I've ranked them from fifth first. So in fifth place, we have some workplaces put in half a day off per week to recharge, which is a good thing. Although in our profession, half a day off means half a day not working on a bid, which, impacts the time that you have to do things. In fourth place, again, some companies offered a wellness day off per month, which is great. But again, if you're working on a busy bid, that can impact on the timelines and can actually increase your stress as you try and get that bid in. Some workplaces employed a well-being coach, which is a great idea, somewhere you could go in a safe space and talk about your issues. In second place, one company had more resource to alleviate the workload, which was great. So you've got more resource to cope with the workload. But in first place, I ranked this one first. Managers were trained on how to support their teams, which is great. And I think this is a thing that you can take forward in the future. So the managers actually knew how to support their teams, knew how to have those difficult conversations or work with the teams to spread the workloads. And that's something that will carry on even after the pandemic. And then 64% of professionals said the workplace provided them well-being ways to improve. But then 73% of people haven't reached out for support during the pandemic, which is quite a high number. I was quite, surprised by that. Of the ones that did reach out for help, 3% went to a mentor, 3% went to family members, 5% went to doctor. External counsellors came in at 8%, and most people went to their manager. And I think that's because your management team understand the role that you're doing. Reaching out made people feel various things. Now, when I did this survey the first time, everything that came back was extremely negative. Although now when people reached out, they're finding the positive side of it. They felt it was liberating, they felt valued and understood, grateful, and they felt like they'd had a voice and were finally being heard. There was still the negative, demoralized that nothing had changed, worried that they'd lose their job, humiliated and embarrassed. And then you got kind of both in the middle, where somebody had the tools to deal with it better now, but the workload remained the same, so it didn't really reduce their stress. One person felt weak, but brave at the same time. So there's a varying amount of emotions, although it's gone from the first survey where it was completely negative to kind of in the middle. And we are actually going to do a survey shortly. So I'm hoping that it's moved along a bit to the more positive. And I think this is the most important thing about well-being. It's all about you. And I don't mean to put that on you to create more stress, but we are responsible for ourselves. And lots of people during the pandemic did a lot to help their mental well-being. Some people switched off all work-related technology outside of work, which I know is extremely hard. What I did was switch off all my notifications, which has helped me massively, and I still haven't switched them back on. Some people decided that they really needed to work somewhere else. People started respecting themselves, putting boundaries in place and saying no when they felt that it was too much for them. Exercise, sometimes it was their only way to get out of the house. People raised challenges with senior teams and got well-being focused activities put in to their schedules. Again, exercise, walking out, being outdoors, getting some vitamin D, eating healthy, having me time. That's a big one as well. We're so busy rushing around trying to get deadlines done. I'm guilty of this. I've started implementing this now. It's taken me a long time. People have given up coffee. There's all these little things. Meditation helps as well. And even just talking to people. So people really thought about how to improve their well-being. And 78% of people learn new things about themselves on their well-being. Some people found they did better with routines. What's happened to my slides? They didn't need to be an extrovert all the time. It's fine to kind of chill out and get away from everyone. Somebody found out that they were being too hard on themselves. They learned not to sweat the small stuff. Being a yes woman isn't effective. A yes man, obviously, as well, is the same. Say yes to everything, and then you end up not doing everything properly. Somebody came back and said they recognize the symptoms of stress and when to get help now. Exercise is important for other people's mental health. And they found that they adapt well in new situations. So that's back to the change situation. They were being quite positive to change. Some people realized they didn't want to do bids anymore, which is fair enough. Sometimes it can get too much, and it's the only thing that we can do. 63% of people thought that management are now more aware of how important it is to look after their team's mental well-being. And sometimes they're more aware, but they don't always do anything to make it easier. And this is what our next survey will focus on. Do they know why their team and people struggle, and why? Have they been trained to spot signs of struggle, or have they been trained in how to have difficult conversations? And is their management on board? So it's not only our management, it's their management right to the top that needs to realise the importance of well-being in our profession. And some people have started to view the bid and proposal role differently while they were going through the pandemic and all the changes. So many have changed roles. They've gone to smaller companies where they felt that there's more emphasis on mental well-being. Some people are now more focused on balance rather than chasing that promotion. People have said, I won't say yes to people now if it means saying no to myself, which is great, something that I'm still trying to implement. And some people said, I now take a we're not saving babies attitude. It's work, it will get done, it's not going to be the end of the world. And then we've got this nice little rainbow that strategic proposals designers made for me. So coming back to those three kind of streams that form the perfect storm. So on personal side of, mental well-being is all about us and how we deal with ourselves. Good to talk and share. Another tip is to take care of yourself mentally and physically. Get out and about, get out in the fresh air. I struggle with it. Sometimes I go for 3 days and then think, I haven't been out of the house. So even a quick 10-minute walk around the block is definitely a benefit. respect yourself and know you are important. So boundaries, get those in place. You can't stretch your boundaries. You can have chats with your management and try and find a middle ground as to how much you do, how, can anybody else help, that type of thing. But it's good to stay firm on those boundaries at the same time so that people respect you for sticking to what you decided, how much you can do and how much you're not willing to do. And focus on the good stuff. This is a good profession to be in. There's so many skills we can learn. There's a good group of people that, in the profession, build the connections and everything. And yeah. And then procurement. So this was the people that issue the bids. These are the ones that, issue those deadlines around about Christmas. Let's try and build connections within procurement, have those conversations with them. They might not know that we struggle when at Christmas time, when they've all gone off on leave and we're left to do all the work on these bids. Challenge them. What can they do different? Can they stop giving us those deadlines at the wrong time of year? And then focus groups, for example, APMP, we're starting to put in focus groups on various areas. We would like to build one on that focuses on procurement and getting in touch with these people and building those relationships. So if that's something you're interested in, do let me know, because that will be coming up shortly. And then for management, they're not the enemy all the time. Talk to them, teach them and collaborate with them. Build a team charter if you work in a bid team of the boundaries that you want to set as a team, and take that to management and get that built in to your bid processes. They're not the enemy. You can work well together with them. It just takes a bit of teaching and collaboration. And that's the 3. Oh, I think we're going to see them all again.
Okay.
Just for extra emphasis. And that's the end of my talk today. So I hope you got something out of that.
Absolutely, Mairi. First of all, thank you so much for presenting, and to all at Strategic Proposals for this presentation and the research, and also the way that it was displayed. This is a fantastic presentation. I can see people asking when will these slides be available, and that's always a good sign. So well done to all at Strategic Proposals and for you for presenting. However, you're resonating. You can see it in the attendee chat in terms of, people who've done similar activities to you with health, with exercise, with turning off notifications. You're really striking a chord with the audience, and we really appreciate you bringing that to our conference, because it's a topic that comes up over and over again. It's the impact of not getting some of the optimizations right in organizations, or it's the impact of being over ambitious in a role, or trying to get through and win more business and grow with a company. It's the real impact of not getting that correct. So we really appreciate you bringing us all this great information. I do have one kind of question for you in terms of your next steps. I know you have great work with APMP. Are you working on anything else that maybe the audience would like to know about, your work with Burnout?
Yeah, so my idea was always to do another survey as we're coming out of the pandemic. What has changed from the second survey and what's changed from before the pandemic. And I'm now vice chair of the APMP Mental Health Affinity Group. And we're actually currently writing survey questions to answer that. So there will be a survey coming out at some point in the near future to see exactly what's happening in regards to, is the well-being improving? Is management more on board with protecting people's well-being? And we're, as the Mental Health Affinity Group, we currently have monthly online discussions where anybody's able to take part. We don't record these. We keep it as a safe space so anybody can talk about things they're going through, maybe get input from other people, suggestions as to, how to deal with things, and even just finding that other people are going through the same thing as well. So it's a really safe space. So we want to continue those. And we're looking at maybe, we've got so many ideas for future, how do we help the profession to get to a stage where well-being isn't such an issue? And it's going to be very difficult because obviously deadlines are going to be deadlines, it's always going to be stressful. But I think there's a huge opportunity to teach people and help people learn about how to look after their own well-being and how to work in a team that promotes well-being, on setting boundaries, that type of thing as well. And we want to take the group as far as we can take it. We just don't know exactly where that is at the moment, but all good things coming up.
Yeah, but it looks, even from, hopefully we do see some of the people in this audience take advantage of those opportunities. There's definitely people resonating in the chat. You noted one interesting thing in the middle of the presentation around bid no bid analysis. You noted it was very similar to a conversation that we had earlier today. Fred from Pragmatics noted how making quite a smaller, an SMB type company that Fred works with, how they need to be careful about resources and they have to make the right decisions, and bid no bid analysis is a big part of his remit, and that you noted about maybe the communication strands between proposal writer or manager and maybe leadership. Could you develop a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I think when you do a bid decision, it's not just about, do we think we can win it? There is other aspects that need to be taken into consideration. And one of them is, do you have the resource to do the bid response effectively? And then that should open the conversation about how busy people are. Are they too busy? Are you asking them to work 16-hour days to get this bid in? Have you just got one bid manager that all this work is going to be lumped on? Because that's not really, going to help their well-being, is it? They're not going to get any sleep. They're going to be like that person, with that quote in that slide earlier on, where they're working 10 days straight. So, by asking if you have the resource to do it effectively, then that should bring up the conversation. And if it doesn't, I think if bid managers and proposal managers are involved in that decision, then they should feel confident enough to bring that up. We've only got 2 people, this bid's due in a week, and it's 600 pages long. Is just not viable. And again, it's about being confident to say that, and also putting boundaries in place, saying, well, I can only give this amount of time to that bid. So unless we got other people to help, it's not going to work. So it's about having those conversations to kind of, with management, to show that, you can't expect somebody to work 24 hours a day.
No, totally. And I can see it here actually in terms of kind of another follow-up question. It's down to alignment. So down to alignment between BD and proposals, or management and proposals, and being able to have those kind of data-driven conversations, and also bandwidth decision making as well, which is really important. Mairi, an amazing thank you. Yeah, we've been delighted. You've resonated with so many people. People seem delighted with your presentations, and absolutely slides will be shared afterwards and recording. There's still questions coming in about that, so we're delighted to share them with everybody. But thank you so much, and we look forward to having you on again. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.